Hello, my name is 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚝 and today we're going to be going over chapter 1056, titled The Cross Guild. Whiz, bang, boom, add some sound effects and maybe a camera angle edit and cut this out later. We gotta find And just like you, I was super hyped up all week about the cross guild idea with Buggy, and then when I read the actual chapter, it was like, what the fuck?
Shit, boy.
Who is this flame-scarred man? So that's actually where we're going to start today, because I'm pretty sure I figured it out 100%. But first, we have to start by going over who it's not and why it's not them, as far as this panel here and the character that Law and Kid are referring to. So after Kid, Law, and Luffy have kind of settled on their courses they're going to take leaving the island of Wano, Killer makes a comment to Kid about, we ought to get serious about that guy, and then Kid responds with, you want to go after the man marked by flames? And the phrasing here, according to the scanlations, is unique and can imply a burn or a scar shaped like fire. And basically, my first thought kind of went to Sabo with all of his stuff, and I talked about my first chapter review video about how Sabo's scar has definitely changed shape to be more Shanks-like recently, but going along those same lines as Sabo, I was kind of thinking, okay, you know, this burn or scar shaped like fire could be kind of any sort of brand mark that's been made, whether it's from the Celestial Dragons or from the Fisherman Pirates, you know, that covered up the mark with a literal sun shape. And then I started thinking, you know, I really wonder what Buggy's face tattoos and his nose cover up underneath there. But that also kind of made me think of Dragon and his face tattoos, and I think all of those actually could apply in some form. But I think that in the One Piece world, we haven't been privy to it, but there is a prophecy in the One Piece world, and the way to attain the One Piece power and do all this stuff to kind of control the One Piece world, that's already figured out in the One Piece world. People are already doing that, and they already are acting on that information, and just the Straw Hat Pirates and the reader, us, do not have that information. And I think that this prophecy is essentially just how to become Pirate King, and then another hidden half of it is how to utilize that power to rule the world, which is what we're going to get into. All of this forces my mind to bring up, you know, Merwin the Mage and the Song of Ice and Fire books, who, you know, one of my favorite quotes from the books is his prophecy, it'll bite off your prick every time. And that idea that prophecy and self-fulfilling prophecy and all that stuff in real life can be bad, obviously, but in the stories, characters are working off of bad information or misinterpreting prophecies, I think, like that.
I don't want it. I never have.
And I think right now, there's a lot changing, and a lot has changed in the outside One Piece world. And I think that right now, I'll just be straight up with you. I think that right now, currently, Blackbeard has what we would conceivably call the One Piece treasure, whatever the aspect of it that might be a weapon that helps kind of turn the tides of the world. I believe that Blackbeard already has that, and that all the Gorosei talk about remove the D and all that stuff was referring to Blackbeard. Now, I'm not saying that that's who Kid and Law are talking about here, but I do think the idea that Blackbeard needed 𝚗𝚙𝚅, who would be someone who was touched by fire from Akainu, I believe he's used him, and that's why he met up with Blackbeard and all that stuff, and that was most likely the 10th Titanic captain and all that stuff. I believe that 𝚗𝚙𝚅 is the first part of the prophecy, or at least one interpretation of the first part of the prophecy that's needed, and it relates back to that Don Chinjiao flashback from Dressrosa. And it reminds me, I think it's something sort of like Don Chinjiao's flashback, where he had treasure hidden underneath ice, and he needed a tool from the Marines to. Oh wait, I mean, I'm not talking about Luffy. I mean, he was there. You know, his head was broken by Garp, and he could not get to this treasure at the bottom of this iced surface and ocean thing. And I believe that is what Blackbeard used Akoji for. And I think that this whole process is one interpretation of this prophecy that is about breaking apart ice to get to a treasure, and the multiple ways that that can be interpreted and sought out to be done in the One Piece world. But I do ultimately think this is a misinterpretation, but it is what Blackbeard is operating under, I believe, currently at this moment. And I believe that is, he's been following that prophecy. And even 2 chapters ago when Shanks and Ben Beckman were talking about the One Piece, they both made mention to say, let's claim it. Don't you think we should claim it? All that stuff. I believe that in the One Piece world, the Blackbeard's already found it. Now, if the One Piece treasure was already found, Luffy would have absolutely no motivation to go on in the One Piece world. So to keep the story going, and that works through many, many, many forms and facets and just crazy things that I'll get to in future videos. But for just on a base level, if the audience and Luffy know that the One Piece are found, the entire reading and shape of the story changes exponentially from that moment on. So for right now, we can't know that. And I believe that that's been hinted at kind of since 1054. Apo means to remove, and specifically it comes from the ancient Greek words apo, which and Proto-Indo-European words epo, which all meant off, away, from, away, remove from, all sorts of stuff in many, many different languages all over the world, all pertaining to the meaning of removing something or taking something, basically away from something or away from somewhere. And that idea that he gave the paper to Kid, I believe that just like we heard in at the end of the Whole Cake Island arc, Big News Morgan printed out a paper that had 2 front pages, and he removed one of the front pages, the one saying that Blackbeard is Pirate King and that he found the One Piece treasure, and that the rest of the paper that he gave Kid to look at and to give Luffy and Law and all that stuff was essentially a newspaper missing its front page with the vital information. And before I address how Blackbeard could be in control of the One Piece treasure right now and also still be considered a Yonko, I first want to go into who Kid and Law are talking about here. Because I think that who Law and Kid are talking about, they're ultimately wrong as well, or misguided in some way, however you want to view it. But I believe that they are kind of working off bad information too, and that this whole fire thing, I'm going to touch on it later in the video with Franky and the ash tree and stuff, but I really think that there's a lot of stuff going on with bad information and maybe following the false leads and all that stuff in the story. And Law and Kid getting ready to betray Luffy here, I think, is one of the things that Oda's kind of doing to show just how bad misinterpreting things can be sometimes and how detrimental it can be. Is you end up fighting and killing your friends over something as small as being right. Now, all of that I said, I think is extremely valid and is not at all contradicted by this stuff, so it's just kind of crazy. I believe that Law and Kid believe they're talking about Luffy here, but even that is not ultimately correct. But I'll go into their reasoning for all that. We kind of get this paper clue here in the corner with this idea that, this is a tracing of a poneglyph and that, it's one page of this full history type deal, all this stuff. But in this chapter, Law actually talks in 6 panels, and in all 6 panels, even though we could and should see his eyeballs at some point, we don't see his eyes whatsoever. So to me, already, this idea of betraying and we heard all through Onigashima and the raid and everything about how pirate alliances always end in betrayal, and I really believe, even just on the surface level, Law seems to have known this information and not brought it up to the Straw Hat Pirates for over 500 chapters almost now. So to me, it's like, okay, something's going on with that. And I really do think that this whole thing kind of revolves around Akainu and his magma fruit, whatever, and people who have been scarred by him and maybe scarred by Ace in some way. Now, why exactly it matters about being scarred by Akainu, I will touch on in just a second. But for as far as Luffy goes, I believe that would really fit for Luffy pretty hardcore. And when we look through the light here and get crazy, we do see Luffy in each of the panels where it's talked about for this. You want to go after the man marked in flames. And Luffy is actually cut up perfectly in half by the placement of Kid's word bubble here on the page. you know. Now, this is a scanlation. I can't go off this 100% until I have the actual printout, so take it with a grain of salt. But that actually kind of ties into who I actually think that it is. And we even kind of get a clue to it up here. I really think that Law up here in this top panel, going to a submarine, he really reminds me of that Fishman Island Joy Boy flashback shot that we saw the one time when Orihime was telling telling the story of Joy Boy and all the promises or whatever. This is like a reverse shot of that, and instead of, he just has the sword on his shoulder, to me. And when it comes down to being scarred by Akainu, especially with Luffy the way he is right here, where Luffy got that X-shaped scar on his chest, after Akainu's fist is baptized in Ace's fire going through his torso to kill him, after that, Luffy actually gets the X-shaped scar from when Jinbei was trying to escape with him, and Akainu punched through Jinbei's shoulder and hit into Luffy's chest, somehow resulting in Luffy taking the brunt of the damage. And what's crazy on an even deeper level is, according to the scanlation, the phrasing is unique and can imply a burn or a scar shaped like fire. Well, Jinbei actually has that literally with the Akainu wound, but he also has a sun tattooed in the shape of fire and the sun on his belly. And to me, going back to that Don Chinjiao flashback in Dressrosa, the idea that something about the One Piece and needing to be able to manipulate or destroy or part water in some way, well, Kuzan can do that, Jinbei can do that, but maybe it's a stretch that Fishman Karate can affect frozen water. But to me, at the very least, Jinbei would be able to manipulate or, crush and break up and crack a ice surface, maybe, with his Fishman Karate. But it also really makes me think that Akainu might also qualify, because he seems to have scars, and, they're probably ice burns or whatever. We really don't know where he got these scars from. But he does have a bunch of tattoos, and maybe some of them are sunflowers or something covering, whatever. Maybe it looks like fire, all sorts of stuff like that. Him kind of being like a Song of Ice and Fire hound type character that is, marking characters for other prophecy purposes, I really do think could be at play here. But even disregarding any prophecy sort of aspect to it, all three of those characters could conceivably have powers that could get rid of or move or plow out huge sources of water. Kuzan could freeze it and maybe part like he did in Marineford. Jinbei could move it, Kamehameha water wave it away, or crack through the ice's surface like the Kool-Aid Man.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh yeah.
And I believe that either Akainu could maybe evaporate the ice if he created enough lava, but also just, use his huge magma fist, chunks of burning love, and break up ice on the ground or an icy surface just like he too did at Marineford. It kind of makes me think that's something that maybe Sabo could do, or in combination with someone else do. Think that Sabo could fit all this stuff too with his fire powers in some way. And that's why, to me, I really got the idea that there's some prophecy in the One Piece world that we just don't know about, because every single organization in the world seems to have a character with a scar marked by fire. Every single organization in the One Piece world that has a high-up individual who could fit this description of being marked by flames and having a scar shaped like fire or a burn in the shape of fire, all that stuff. I believe that's because every single organization might be privy to this prophecy, and they are acting on that all the time and trying to utilize that to whatever means their specific faction is aiming for, and are actively trying to make it come to fruition. Which, to me, this prophecy plan thing kind of runs twofold, in having one aspect of it be stopping and trapping the next messiah of the One Piece world, and then the other part is utilizing that power from that to influence the reality of the One Piece world through who Luffy likes. I think there's lots of crazy stuff going on, but something I see all the time is, Luffy has, main character powers and all sorts of stuff like that, and he does. The really crazy thing in the One Piece world is that there are other characters like Shanks, like Garp, like Dragon, who are aware of this reality-altering power that Luffy possesses within him as the main character, and where his influence and attention, how that benefits them and interacts with the One Piece world of reality. I 100% think that this prophecy is about that, and even the Pirate King story influencing Luffy from page 1 is 100% clear to me. And my number ninja friend Elson pointed out to me the other day that when the Straw Hat Pirates go to Logue Town, it is actually 22 years to the day from Gold Roger's execution. And I really am wondering, since we're in the year 2022, 22 years after the 2,000-year mark of one maybe Messiah being put to death in Jesus Christ, I really wonder if what we're getting right now is kind of the start-up of that same process all over again for this next era. And to me, it all revolves around the power that comes from being the King of Pirates and the person that finds the One Piece treasure in some form. But let me explain that.
They're on to me, dude. Those guys are sharp as nails up there. You can't put anything past them. Which means all of this was for nothing. God damn it, dude. I'm having a panic attack. I'm actually having a panic
Will
attack.
you settle down and have another cup of coffee?
I am, bro.
All right, well, fine. You know what, Barney? Give this guy a cigarette. He's freaking out.
Huh? Who?
Barney. He's the guy who tipped me off to Pepe Sylvia.
Barney? Who the hell is Barney?
You don't see Oh, shit. What the hell did he...
You've lost your mind. You've lost your goddamn mind, Charlie.
And real quickly, touching back on the scene with Law and Kid, do think that Law and Kid think it's Luffy, but I don't think it's ultimately that, but I think they think that, and all of these weird shots of, Law kind of hiding his eyes and we're not being able to see into his soul and all that kind of stuff, I think is totally at play here, and like I said, he's in 6 panels, we don't see his eyes in any yet, he's talking and his eyes, they're perfectly covered in every single one. So to me, the idea that Law and Kid are kind of becoming or settling into the idea or fact that they're going to, about to be a Judas, I think is very much at play here. And coming back to Jesus, of course, and obviously how he died on the cross. He was killed on the cross. Killed on the cross. Oh, you mean like the cross killed? The cross killed Jesus? Is that maybe a thing being played with here with Oda and this new guild that Buggy's created? When we look through the pages, this is how the double page spread winds up. All of the cross guild characters kind of line up with Law here, and he kind of seems like he has what he's been looking for. I do believe he was after Toko here in her powers, and actually the idea that his leg is connecting to Hiyori's shamisen, I think is actually a real thing, especially considering I think that Kuzan was the first iteration of this Flame Scar guy, because when it comes to that instrument and the Kuzan's epithet of the blue pheasant, now I went through a whole bunch of birds from mythology because like I said, at first I was really onto this Kuzan idea, and like I said, I do think he's actually one of them. So I was looking into the mythological birds, and I found this one called the Luan. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the Luan bird.
That boy ain't right.
And the girl version was a Jinji, which meant golden chicken. But this bird itself has been inappropriately translated as rock or phoenix at various different times. By later Japanese and Chinese periods, the Luan bird became associated with the Queen Mother of the West. Now the bird is, the Sankai states that the bird is the transformation of a divine spirit. It is described also as the essence of all divine birds, but like with this, with the guitar right there, the Japanese Wakan Sanzai-zu of the Edo period stated that due to the viscosity of the Luan's blood, it could be used as an adhesive for attaching strings to musical instruments. And I think the idea that someone could be after Jinbei's blood, and I really think there's a lot to the idea that Luffy is Oda's #1 instrument, and the idea that some sort of his insides is connected and continuing to flow because of blood from Jinbei, from maybe this Luan type blood relationship thing, keeping him able to make sound and, participate and make music in the One Piece world by interacting in it, I think is very real, and it is also inside Luffy. So you could maybe, in some magical way, get a piece of Jinbei's blood from Luffy's body, which I think is going to happen, but I'm going to have to touch on that at the end of this video. And speaking of the end of this video, I'm trying to, I have to work full-time and all sorts of stuff, and I cannot commit as much full-time as I would like to this yet. But with with more support and stuff like that. I hope to do that in the future, but I'm trying to at least do a review of a chapter every week, as well as 1 to 2 extra videos every week. And now I do have some bigger videos, like around the hour type length that I'm working on in the background, that I hope to be able to do one of those per month. But kind of having a schedule of something maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday, the chapter review, and then when there's a break, just having kind of 2 new videos. That's kind of what I'm shooting for. So if you like what you've seen so far, please like and subscribe, click the notification bell or whatever. And if you think I'm super crazy, comment. If you agree with anything, comment. Just comment whatever you want. I love the interaction. It's really it doesn't feel good to feel like you're talking into the void all the time. And so any sort of interaction, any sort of stuff like that is what this is all about. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it down below. And coming back to the chapter, I think there's a lot of stuff going on with Wano kind of being a wishing stick or a piece of a wishbone, something along those lines, or a literal resting place to make prayers or wishes, and a place, I think, a lot like Drum Island, where you can go and have those wishes and desires be heard, almost like a bed for a child to make prayers on the bedside. When Shinobu, after she's kind of gotten, her body has been depleted of whatever was inside of it by Ryogoku, and then when she is recovered completely, she looks totally different. She's grown. She's, beautiful looking, all that sorts of stuff. And she's even got a clue to alluring, mature ladies being alluring ancient weapons, which I think one of the ancient weapons, I believe, is a form of Baba Yaga, and that kind of fits all that stuff 100%. But the idea that maybe once all of her interactions in the Onigashima raid were pretty much watching Momonosuke and Yamato maybe, start to fall in love a little bit, and the idea that maybe she was jealous of that a little bit, or wanted a replacement, a girl this time. She kind of got all those things that she wanted at the end of the arc, it seems like. Raizo here saying he wishes he was cool. I really wonder if he's going to come back, as a cool-looking ninja, or, Gedetsu or something like that. And after Carrot's situation is kind of decided for her by her superiors, it seems.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. Intel has told us there are at least 7.
Okay, I already see one. Give him. Okay.
We cut to the Straw Hats discussing Pluton. Luffy makes mention, didn't you torch the blueprints for that thing, Franky? And I do think a very real possibility is the idea that those blueprints could be this flame-scarred thing in some form, because all of this might actually be the biggest clue to me about what the actual truth is about this man marked by fire or with a burn scar actually is. And it's all a reference to the first man in Norse mythology, ASKR, which meant ash, from the Yggdrasil ash tree. Now, considering in Old Norse mythology, this ASKR person was the first man, I think it's fair to equate the ideas being presented here and mixed together by Oda to maybe be referencing the Adam treasure tree wood, whatever. In the Viz translation, it's the Adam jewel tree. But I believe that all of that is getting hinted at here, and I really think it's much, much deeper than that, because when it really comes to this idea of being marked by fire or in the shape of fire, to me, if you drew up the plans to a ship that could, sail the seas and exist on the One Piece world, drawing those plans on, pieces of paper, cut down trees, if that paper was paper from the Tree of Life and you drew on it, that would be the first phase of this, Pluton thing. And as my great friend Elson reminded me while we were talking about the newest chapter dropping on Thursday night, Friday morning, whatever, this idea that the blueprints themselves could be some form of this touched by fire entity, I think is very at play here, especially with all his connections with Franky. The Kurazumi's name themselves means charcoal, and charcoal being kind of an original ash or original pencil for marking on paper and before inking sort of things. You can't really erase charcoal the same way you can pencil. I think all of that could very easily be 100% at play here for the idea of Franky and maybe some sort of a blueprints for altering reality and the original prophecy that's written down on. Because maybe it's a spell, and even though Franky does all these magical things with technology and crazy things, it's all ultimately taking, the fire of life and applying it to, different technologies and different cyborgs and battleships and things that the crew cares for but are ultimately, not living as far as we know. And to me could be, just like I said, a play on the ash idea of, ash and charcoal being very similar, and the both kind of being able to stain paper and mark on paper or trees. And I said that whole, transferring the flame of light thing because I really think that this idea that all of these ancient weapons are named after gods and stuff. Well, one of the earliest gods and light bringers and all these things is Prometheus, and I think somewhere in the One Piece world, a character extremely similar or exactly pretty much one for one of Prometheus is trapped underneath somewhere in the One Piece world, and people are taking that fire and using it for different things, and maybe it's in the shape of a dragon like in The Hobbit. Stuff like that I think is 100% going to be what we're going to be seeing soon, because I really think that we're one of the gods is going to be Prometheus, and that's going to take its shape as this giant who's maybe even stabbed to the earth with a giant tree or something. To me, I can't help shaking this idea that there is some sort of giant sea man or giant merman trapped underneath the red line, and that the red line, very much like Luffy and Little Garden, is holding this creature down in some way. And this, I know that sounds crazy, but just we'll see what happens in the next few chapters. How that kind of extends to be crazy kind of things, I think, is actually been clearly kind of hinted at in Chapter 1. There's so much talk all the time about Luffy's straw hat, but I don't really think anyone ever kind of notices he has two just as important straw things that are on him all the time. His sandals. I really think that his straw shoes and sandals really matter as well in some form, and I can't help but notice they're missing here. Now, I guess the whole entire floor is those straw mat things or whatever, so I guess that perhaps his understanding and footing is now we're all on the same level in some form. Could be being stated here, but I really think there's a lot of things about maybe this place corrupting forms of the world and him losing his shoes here and then basically replacing the footing for the future age of Wano, I think could really be what Oda's kind of trying to hint at here. And something like going back to the straw hat shoes or the straw shoes or whatever, the sandals that Luffy wears, he's literally had them in every shot that we've seen him outside of the initial opening cover spread. And I really think the idea that that straw, the straw hat and the straw shoes perhaps could be woven from material from the tree of life or the Adam tree or the Eve tree. I mean, some magical tree in the One Piece world. I really think Luffy's kind of been hinting at that with the straw shoes. He's always, even now in Gear 5 when he's bouncing around the sky, his shoes always stay on him and almost seem to interact just like he does with reality, kind of manipulating it and bouncing it around. And to me, the major thing with this whole ship made of Adam wood and all sorts of stuff, and my name really is Adam. It is uniquely funny to me how much it seems to work out with my name being some of these clues. But I think one aspect of finding the One Piece is essentially having to go into the mouth of a monster. And if you don't have the right ship, like I feel like if you went into the mouth of a monster who's been sitting there specifically designed to let certain individuals in or out or certain ships in or out, maybe they can like taste or sense what type of wood the ship that's in their mouth is. And if it's the Adam tree wood, they will not smash it up and they will let it go past. And I think this even applies to Laboon at the start of the story. I think the major super scaled version is, what we're about to see soon in the story. And that kind of crazily leads me even more into Franky and what's going on with him. Have you ever noticed that his house, one, it has a mailbox. For a criminal to have a mailbox and a registered address with the, whatever form of government is around is very odd to me and is a clue. Did you ever notice that the original Franky house was just a flipped around Wano capital? The castle in the middle of the flower capital with the moon tree in the back and everything like that.
They're the same picture.
And especially knowing that Franky's original name when he was in disguise and all that stuff was 𝚲𝚙𝚙𝚢𝚛𝚒. That flam word is very interesting, and it kind of dates back to the Old English word film. And film actually isn't from an ancient Greek word palma, which might remind you of Big Mom's flashback as well. But palma meaning sole of the foot. So to me, right off the bat, a big clue back to Luffy's straw sandals and how they protect the sole of his foot from the ground. They also, they've repelled Zoro's swords before, all sorts of stuff. They're pretty much the barrier between Luffy's body and, everything he walks on, everywhere he travels. Much like how a, wooden pirate ship would be for the crews, the crew in it using it, and where they're traveling to. I think we can extend this idea that Luffy being the main character and we're following him, and the whole entire story kind of revolves around his perspective, that the idea that, he's the main character probably going to find One Piece in some form, or at least its completed form as far as Oda is concerned. To me, the idea that there was a requirement of this, some sort of a cup or a holder to be between the person that's the chosen character who's going to find this treasure and how they get there, to me, just Luffy walking. And even in the very first page of Volume 1, we don't see the Straw Hat Sandals, but we do see the Straw Hat, and the entire ship and him are here, and it's very symbolic, and I'll do a video in the future breaking this whole thing down. But I am going to have a video all about this next week. Next week we have a break, so look forward to Thursday or Friday a video on just a complete breakdown of Pluton and how it relates to Prometheus and the idea of the flame and spark of creation kind of weaving itself to fix itself maybe, or return to itself in some form. We'll touch on all of that next video. For this video, we're going to end on Buggy's new Cross Guild organization. Now, I mentioned earlier how much I thought it sounded like Cross killed and all referencing kind of all the kind of things a cross can kill or repel. Now, first off, all 3 members pictured in the Cross Guild poster were actually present at Roger's execution. And so this idea of a prophecy or a plan to stop the world's Messiah, I think this kind of hints at there too, and I really kind of am imagining that 𝚲𝚙𝚎𝚑𝚝 will perhaps be in the future of this guild as well. The sound effects and the word bubbles on the poster really, I think, kind of say a lot here, and they cover up the bottom of the G, so it kind of actually looks just like the C on top, but we know from what they're saying that it's the, guild or whatever. Now, this is all connected to Shanks. These swords, no one that we know of in this organization, the Cross Guild, uses this particular design of saber, and more importantly, Shanks' pirate flag has always not had the black back half of his swords, of his katana swords or whatever, on his Jolly Roger. He's never filled in. Now, you can argue that it's because it wouldn't show up on the black background in a manga, but, Zoro's ones are colored in, and we've never seen it on a flag, but to me, the idea that they've always been invisible or not filled in is because they're somewhere else. It's kind of like the shadow of the blade is connected somewhere else. And I think that this is one of those connections, not the only one, but one of Shanks's kind of hidden hand of justice, in quotation marks, invisible hand. Essentially part of Shanks's invisible gavel that he kind of holds over the One Piece world. Just like Oda does, if you've ever wondered why Oda considers himself so similar to Shanks. It's because both of them get every character and every single page we've seen to do exactly what they want. And I think an extension of that is in the Cross Guild name, whereas, in real life, there's been lots of religion and censorship kind of, censorship, crusades, devastations, catastrophes, massacres, whatever, spurred on by religious texts of all sorts, throughout all of time. But here I think he's kind of specifically focusing on the cross idea and exactly what a cross, can repel, and he's using this guild word. Now the word guild comes from the Proto-Germanic gelda, and it combines with all sorts of Old Frisian geld, Old Saxon geld, Old Norse gelad, and the Gothic runna, which was, I guess, guild. But all of that word meant payment or to pay, meant tax, tribute, guild, a pagan god or idol, worship, especially to an idol or pagan god, or a sacrifice, like a religious offering. And to me, the idea that this entire organization is hinting at things that the One Piece world has actively worked to cover up is kind of the idea of the Crusades, kind of hunting down the pagan stuff, and all those sorts of stories and things you've heard. And it's not just Crusades; it's throughout time people have hunted down people for all sorts of reasons. Religion's just one of them. The need to be right will make you do a lot of things. Even create your own YouTube channel. But I think what Oda is playing with here, with this whole cross guild idea and the wordplay at hand. This idea that Oda's kind of saying, there's these hidden hands behind the scenes all connected, making sure that they keep one particular symbol and idea in power, and they kind of sacrifice and put down and make them at least pay tribute or tax to all the other ones, or the old gods or ancient worlds and warriors in the One Piece world, I think is very real. And how exactly the powers of the One Piece world function on every single page. But I'm going to have to get to that in the later videos. And since next week we do have a break week, I'm actually going to save my predictions for the next chapter and the coming chapters for the video coming, the videos coming this week. But all this Ash talk and maybe a one end of the One Piece world trying to reach back to itself on the other end really just makes me keep thinking of Ash Wednesday and who exactly Miss Wednesday was in the story, and how maybe she could be used as the ultimate kind of trap to get Luffy to, do whatever someone wanted in a very real fashion with a threat and stuff along those lines. But I think it could also be something much worse, and she could maybe be a catalyst that's used to draw and make Luffy go over the edge. But that will have to wait till next time. My name is 𝙲𝚘𝚙𝚒𝚘𝚝. If you've liked the video, please like and share and subscribe, and leave a comment with what you thought and what you thought of the chapter and what you think is coming next. I'd love to hear the thoughts from you, and I will talk to you all later. Bye bye.